Good morning, welcome to Headline Focus here live on Core Politics with me, Rob Double. It is Tuesday, the 5th of December 2017. Let's have a look at what's making the news. So to start off with, in the Times newspaper, renters cladding charges. Now, owners of flats with the same outside cladding as Grenfell Tower are being charged thousands of pounds by landlords to replace the cladding to something safer. Now, this is a Times investigation, and the investigation says that thousands of landlords and up to 100 private developments face huge bills to pay for wardens and to replace this flammable material that they had no responsibility for actually putting up. Now, one development, it's reported, has tenants facing a collective bill of more than £1 million to remove. Next up, now this isn't really in the front news of the papers, but it's going to be significant if it does happen, and it's certainly coming through on the international news feeds this morning. So the BBC particularly reporting that US President Donald Trump is ready to unilaterally recognise Jerusalem as Israel's capital later this week. Now, it's significant because it's a significant step. Congress has voted in 1995 for the US embassy to move from Tel Aviv, where it currently is, to Jerusalem. But US presidents since that date have basically signed a waiver every 6 months to stop it from happening because of the political problems that are associated with Jerusalem and recognising it as Israel's capital, because obviously it's a disputed city between the Palestinians and the Israelis. Now, the White House is quoted by the BBC as saying it is a matter of when, not if, Mr. Trump will allow the embassy move to happen. So very significant political moves, but particularly in Middle Eastern politics, particularly to do with Israel-Palestine. So very interesting story there. Let's look and focus, though, at the main story. Now, this was, as you can see in the spread, absolutely plastering every single front page today because it was such a ridiculous, in a way, volatile political event yesterday. If you were following the news at all, you probably were as confused as I was, and most people were, as to what was going on. So let me talk you through what I think happened, and we'll see in 6 months' time whether we're actually all right or whether we're all completely wrong. But basically, yesterday morning, Ireland and the Irish Prime Minister, Taoiseach Search, Leo Varadkar, received notice from the European Commission, particularly Jean-Claude Juncker, that a deal had been made with the UK, particularly over the Irish border, which meant that the talks could progress on to the next stages, but the Irish deal was done, effectively. Now, this wasn't from the UK government. This is from the EU. The EU leaked this story to the press and to Ireland. The UK government, as far as reports go, did not leak any story that a deal had been done. The government, when negotiating this Irish deal and this draft paper which came out with this negotiations with the EU, didn't consult the DUP particularly thoroughly, and therefore the deal which apparently the EU was leaking to the press hadn't actually been run past the DUP properly. So then the DUP kicked off, and that's when you saw Arlene Foster come onto the news and basically say, this doesn't sound like anything the DUP are going to support, and we're going to vote down. So the deal then collapsed after this lunch between Theresa May and Jean-Claude Juncker, after Arlene Foster and the Prime Minister had a discussion on the phone halfway through the lunch. And now who's to blame? Now, arguably Leo Varadkar, the Irish Taoiseach Search, and the EU are to blame for leaking preemptively that an agreement had been made when in fact an agreement hadn't. However, you could also say, why blame the DUP? The DUP, obviously, as you can see in the eye, and the City AM comes between the deal. They are the responsibility for the deal failing. Well, they always said, and they always have said, that they would never agree to a political solution which would mean that there was any kind of change or difference between the Northern Ireland's political situation and the rest of the Union to do with Brexit. They've always said that, and as a result, they were always going to oppose the deal that was put forward yesterday, albeit in a leak. Theresa May is in talks today to save the deal with Arlene Foster of the DUP. Now, there is reports that the alignment deal was actually limited to specific areas stipulated in the Good Friday Agreement, which is chiefly agriculture and energy, and there might have been some confusion yesterday between Arlene Foster and the Prime Minister over the extent of this regulatory alignment. However, we don't know yet. This is going to come out today, and so they're going to be very interesting lines on it. Theresa May will hold talks for the next 24 hours and possibly will be in Brussels again tomorrow to hopefully sign off on some deal with the EU. One more story then coming from the Daily Mail. Now, almost 200 people were arrested in 1 week for stalking children on live streaming apps. Now, this whole problem of live streaming online is going to be a significant challenge in the coming years, inevitably, as live streaming becomes more and more significant and more accessible to people worldwide, including young children and teenagers. So some record footage and use it as blackmail to blackmail victims into more deprived acts. Some offer cash for compliance, and these are people who are effectively grooming young people through live streaming apps. Detectives are reported as saying that they have saved 245 children from voice and exploitation already from using live streaming apps. That's in the Daily Mail. Very interesting story there. It's also on a lot of other news feeds as well. But that's pretty much it for today. You're up to date. Don't forget you can find all the latest on what we're doing here on Core Politics on our Facebook page and on Twitter right here. But from me and all the team here at Core London, have a fantastic start to your day.